Writing a CV that meets German standards is not rocket science. However, you do need to pay attention to some nuances. If you want to know what, then stick around. In this video, I will explain to you in detail how to nail that CV so it impresses Germans. Hey, I'm Jen from simplegermany.com, where we help expats settle into life in Germany more smoothly. If you are interested in this kind of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you are notified when we release new content. So let's jump into it. So providing a resume to apply for a job is obviously nothing new. Every country, at least the majority of countries, do this. However, there are certain cultural differences between each country. For example, the term broadly used in Europe for resume is CV. In German, CV is called Lebenslauf, which can be translated to life run. Germans tend to put a lot of factual information. Remember, they're very efficient. They don't write like fluff or self-promotion or marketing yourself as the super hot shot. CVs are usually between 1 and 2 pages long in Germany. Now, why should you even care if your CV meets German standards or not? Well, if you are applying for a job in Germany, even if it's for an English-speaking job, chances that the HR or recruiter person that is receiving that CV is German, and they will have a certain standard for it. There is a way to give a good impression and not such a good impression. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about what you need to include. A German CV will usually include between 5 and 6 sections. Let's explore them into more detail. Section number 1, personal information. The very first thing that is a bit different than the rest of the countries is that you need to have a picture. This picture needs to be passport size and needs to be a professional picture. It can't be like a selfie that you took from your phone or a picture from your holidays. It needs to be a professional looking picture. First and last name. So Germans tend to have only one first and one last name. I come from Latin America where we have a ton of names. So I personally have 2 first names and 2 last names. I have friends that have 3 first names and 2 last names and so on and so on. So my tip here is to pick your one name that you like to be called and your last name. I had a coworker who comes from Egypt, and then she put all her names in her CV. And then what happened? She got hired, and HR and the tech department, they all took that CV or that name in that CV to create her email account and any other accounts in the system in the company. And as it turns out, it was a really long name, and that led to a lot of confusion. So my tip for you here is that if you have multiple names, pick one first and one last name. Another thing you need to add is your address. So don't forget to include the country. That's also okay if your address is not in Germany. Another thing is your phone number. Germans love to call, and they will call usually before they even provide you an interview appointment, just to check and have a quick chat with you. If you don't have a German phone number, you can always put your Skype ID. That's always also a good way to get in contact with you. Another thing is your email address, as well as your nationality. Nationality will help determine the company if they will need to sponsor a work visa for you or not. Also, you need to put your date of birth, and what is optional is a short profile. So personal information is very important. Thing number 2 is work experience. So the work experience is usually formatted in the following way. You have to provide the name of the company, the title of your position, the dates that you were employed, so include the month and the year, the country where this employment took place, and your key responsibilities. And remember, stick to the facts, no fluff. Germans like to read gapless CVs. That means that if you took a year off to travel the world or a gap year to do something else, you should mention it in that CV. They will not mind that you took a year off. They just want to know what you did between one job and the next. Also, if you did any voluntary work, you should also mention it there. Pretty much anything that is more than 3 months that it didn't have to do directly with the job, you should mention it in your CV. Third thing you need to add is your education. Your secondary education and your higher education. So for every degree, you need to include the following: name of the university or school, the program that you studied, the period that you studied for, don't forget to mention that month and year, and the city and country that you studied in. Very simple. The 4th section is the skills. So don't be shy here. You can mention things like, for example, your language skills, computer skills, relevant achievements or certificates. Also, if you have a driver's license. This is optional, of course, and it depends on the type of job that you're applying for. For example, some jobs might require you to travel within Germany, and for that you will need to take the company car. In this case, obviously the employer needs to know if you have a driver's license or not. Very important here though, it needs to be a German driver's license. Now let's jump to section number 5. This is an optional section because it has to do with hobbies and interests. Remember, Germans love facts, so if you're going to add this section, you have to be very specific. Again, no fluff. And also try to be a little bit more unique than the rest. If you just put I love travel, well, that's very generic and that doesn't say much about you. However, if you're into road trips or camper vanning, for example, you can add that as a very specific activity. Or if you're into sports and you do triathlons or you do marathons, you can write that as well. Pretty much be as specific as possible with your hobbies, not just something generic as reading books, because that does not say much of your personality. An example against reading books could be you love thriller novels or only Stephen King or things like that. And the last section, which I found a bit interesting and kind of weird, is that you need to add your signature at the end. So it's super curious because whenever I look at the CVs from my German wife, she always adds her signature at the bottom. And this is a standard practice that Germans do. So make sure to sign that CV. So the big question is, should you do your CV in English or German? The answer is pretty simple. If you don't speak German, then your CV should be in English. Why? Well, if you do your CV in German, you have to take care of a lot of things. First of all is that Germans, as pretty much I think anyone, they really dislike spelling mistakes. So you need to be confident that your CV is really perfect. The second thing is that if you're going to send your CV in German, you're already setting the expectations to the person receiving your CV that you speak German. So most likely they will want to do that interview in German. And if you don't speak German, then that's kind of awkward. So if you don't speak German, you can send your CV in English. Okay, so to summarize everything, German CVs need to be factual. Remember, no fluff. They need to be between 1 and 2 pages, and they usually have 6 sections. Be very careful in not having any spelling mistakes or grammatical errors because Germans will really dislike that. And last but not least, send the CV in the language that you speak. So I hope this video was helpful to you and that will help you to apply to a lot of jobs in Germany. And if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And well, I guess I'll see you next time. Tschüss!